You're listening to Out Loud and Live with JC Alvarez.
Chucky, the maniacal menace masquerading as a toy, has been terrorizing fans since his big screen horror debut in 1988's Child's Play. Now bringing his brand of badness to the small screen, Don Mancini, creator and executive producer of the USA SyFy Network original series, reveals his longtime working relationship with the devilish doll, who returns for season 3, and the screams are coming from inside the walls of the White House itself.
Don Mancini, what a pleasure to be talking with
The cinematic legend behind the iconic, one and only Chucky.
a character that means so much to so many people. You've had such a storied history with Chucky in this franchise. Can you share a little bit about that and give me a little bit of insight into your relationship with this character in this franchise?
That's a broad question.
Well, it's like,
Um,
it's like we can all remember the first film, and it's, here we are so many decades later, and Chucky's still terrifying us to death.
as a lifelong horror fan, I mean, it's been such a thrill and a privilege to be able to keep exploring the different facets of this character, and and so thrilling that people like him. That you can't ask for more than that. And and the older I get, the more simply grateful I am for having that. Because I don't get tired of it. I mean, I'm a huge horror fan. I'm a Chucky fan. I would be a fan of this stuff if I wasn't doing it. So, um, I it's great. So that's how it's evolved. I think
Yeah.
I feel like I work for Chucky, but that's okay. He's people love Chucky, and he's been, an entree for many of us to like travel around the world and meet different, no, seriously, meet different people,
Sure, yeah.
and meeting people who simply want to talk about how much they enjoy what we do. So it's a really, lucky position to be in. So I'm very grateful to
Yeah.
Chucky, sir.
Chucky is the boss. I mean, somebody who can, stand up the test of time next to in a genre that has given us, Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger. Chucky is amongst those guys. What do you think about him that makes him just as equal as those monsters?
Well, I guess they came out around the same time. Late '70s to late '80s, that era, which now, looking back, seems so innocent in a way. I mean, it's a little before your time, but it really just did seem innocent. I think it's a little before your time. I think. Anyway, if not, good on you. But I think part of the reason for Chucky's longevity is that we do, with even before we got to television and with the movies, it was always important to me and to David Kirshner, my producer, my fellow producer on all these movies, and now Nick Antosca and Alex Headland and Jeff Renfro and everybody. We want to like switch it up as much as we can. And I think that the constant reinvention of Chucky, I mean, I don't know, that's too strong a word, but we go for a crucially different vibe and tone with every movie and every season of the show.
Right.
And I think that that's one of the reasons that he's had longevity.
Yeah, and now, Chucky's now in his third season. You're about to premiere the second half of season 3. You're able to translate this character from theatrical into serialized television. What were some of the challenges story-wise in moving his story from something that's, can usually be told in 2 hours to something that's now a serialized epic?
Well, I first started thinking about taking it into television when I worked on Hannibal, and that
Mm,
was really my first experience in television. So certainly in the writers' room, I had co-written an episode of Tales from the Crypt back in 1990, but that was a one-off, and it wasn't the classic writers' room situation, and I really loved it. I really loved working on Hannibal, and I saw that one of the reasons that it was so vital, that show, was that Brian Fuller, had such a vision for it, but also the writers that he assembled, we were all Hannibal fanatics.
Mm.
Going back, the movies, the novels. And so I realized that if I could do that with my own franchise, and I've been around now long enough that I meet, writers and
Yeah.
executives who were like kids when the first movies came out and grew up on this stuff. So I thought, like, if I can hire people who were as passionate about Chucky as I was about Hannibal, that could help elevate the whole thing. And
Right.
I think that really worked.
There's things that happen in society that are reflective in the horror genre. It's sort of like at the time that things are occurring, it affects what is telling about the horror genre as far as like what is it that scares us. I find it very interesting that season 3 has moved into one of the most um, you know recognizable addresses in the United States, in the
It's a
world.
scary place. I think we'd all agree it can be a scary place, and therefore it's ripe with metaphor. And that's what
Right.
you're always looking for in the horror genre.
Right, exactly. It's seamless. It's like, you almost like think like when I first started seeing the previews for season 3 and then diving into season 3, I was like this is so seamless. This character who we've known from a very urban setting, this disarming toy that's possessed, to have him see him move kind of like up the echelon. You almost like wonder like what's next? Like, Chucky and on the space station.
Well, as you're probably aware, that's one thing that people talk about. I mean, I've talked about it mostly in jest, but some people really want that. But, and maybe we'll do that someday, but it's not just or even really at all about just making it bigger.
Right.
It really is just giving it a new vibe. And I think that
Yeah.
for me personally, and this probably says as much about my attention span as anything else. I like to switch it up because then it just makes it, exciting. And so I sort of like to do something different than what we just did, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, and the throw through of this, this demonic character that we're following, sort of like his vengeance trail, his sort of like his angry prowl, makes great sense. And that's the excitement. And it's like, how many places can where in the world is Chucky next? It really makes for a very frightening and challenging storyline. Your heroes in Chucky in season 3 are hell bent on following him to DC. I'm kind of getting the feeling if we follow sort of like the dictum of horror movies, where it's sort of like, are we moving into like Requal territory where like our legacy characters are now also, on the chopping block? Is Are we going to lose one of our major characters in the second half of the season?
Maybe.
No, no.
No promises. I mean, it's the horror genre. And I think, one of the things that we do, and it can be controversial because not everyone likes it, is we do, kill people we love. And I think that it's important to do that periodically to, keep one foot in the horror genre. I mean,
Right.
Chucky is fundamentally a horror comedy, but he's such a versatile character. He works with all the like lots of different tones, and sometimes it's important to touch that horror ground now and then. So no one's safe necessarily.
And the great part about it is bringing in characters from the films, legacy characters into the series. What was it like, kind of like working with some of the actors from the feature films back in the series?
Well, it's always a blast, to have people back, and I do it a lot. I've done it starting with the movies where I'll bring actors back in different roles because
Mhm.
it's really fun to write um, for to write for actors that you know.
Right.
Um, and it's fun to like, give them new stuff that hopefully will challenge them or appeal to them as like something they haven't done much of before. So that's a lot of fun. And that, is part of my motivation in bringing people back, the latest of which is, Brad. I mean, I work with Brad
Mhm.
continuously for almost 40 years now, but he hasn't been on set in about 10 years since Curse of Chucky. And even
Mm,
that was pretty small window. That was like 2 or 3 days. But on this, he's heavily, Brad Dourif in person, so to speak,
mhm. Correct.
is in the last 4 episodes.
Right.
And it's thrilling, it's thrilling to have him around. Everyone's like, oh my God, Chucky's in the house, and want to bring their A game. Same with
And no
John
one's terrified by that at all.
what maybe before they meet him, but Brad is very, he loves it. He
Yeah.
we did a lot of sort of Dora family stuff. I wanted, because I love Fiona as well, and she's been a big part of the franchise for 10 years now, playing various characters.
Yeah.
And one of them is young Charles Lee Ray when she gets in the makeup. So, and that's, we see that happens in the trailer. So I'm not giving anything away, but I wanted to give them scenes together. And I wanted to give Brad scenes with the Chucky doll, because I felt like after almost 40 years, we can do that now. And that will be appropriately mind-blowing to see,
Right. Right. Yeah.
in the meta way that we sometimes do.
Yeah, you build this mythology, and it's just something so delicious for the fans to, like, sink their teeth into. As we start wrapping this up, because I know your time is valuable today, and the second half of the season will be premiering on USA and SyFy Network on April 10th. Sort of like, how do you see the horror genre right now? It's you've talked about how you've been able to, like, evolve it with the serialized television for Chucky. How do you see the horror genre in its sort of like its overview right now, as fans are digesting it?
I think the horror genre is incredibly vital right now, and vital in the sense of necessary, but also it's thriving now. I think, we're seeing a lot of interesting good work. I haven't seen Late Night with the Devil yet, but I hear it's great. Immaculate's really fun. I'm hearing good things about the new Omen movie. I think it's been a really fertile time. And it's fun to be able to contribute to that. One of the fun things about having the TV show is that, we're putting a new, hours worth of story and content every week, as opposed to 90 minutes every few years. We have this sort of constant opportunity for constant engagement with the fans on social media. And that is mostly really fun.
The great thing about what Chucky is doing is just pulling in all those morsels and reestablishing this mythology that really almost goes back to the very beginning. That
Yep.
goes back to the very beginning. It's such a unique thing, but I got to tell you, I will never own a Chucky doll.
Fair enough.
It's
One
like,
happens
it's
to show up on your doorstep, then you're going to be terrified. Right?
Oh, Don, thank you so much for taking some time with me, and
Thank
congratulations
you.
on Chucky. And season three is the second half of season three will be premiering on April 10th on USA and on SyFy Network. And I'm sure the fans are looking forward to more Chucky.
Fingers crossed on season 4.
You've been listening to Out Loud and Live with JC Alvarez. My thanks to the remarkable Don Mancini for joining me and unboxing the secrets behind Chucky. Tune into the third season of Chucky, new episodes airing on USA SyFy Network at 9 p.m. Eastern and streaming on Peacock. For more entertainment and pop culture news, check out thefanzine.com, featuring a review of The First Omen, the terrifying prequel of the original horror classic, in theaters now. Thanks for joining me, and always stay tuned.